Hello and welcome to the inaugural River Radio Sports Central podcast, along with Matt Varney from ESPN 103.5. I'm Darren Kinnard, and Matt, it's a great week because all of the fall sports are in action.
Yeah, it's been fun. Waking up early in the morning, doing anchor sports and everything, and the fact that I'm actually having some local sports to be able to report on has been fantastic. Yesterday, there was chock full of volleyball scores. Today, not as much, because that's because of the heat that's been going on, and a lot of things have been canceled. But still, it's been a fun week.
I was going to say that is the big story of week one. Yeah. And golf started last week.
Right.
But actually 2 weeks ago. But, the heat has been a major factor. And, it's been interesting to me to watch what has been canceled or postponed and then what has gone on and played.
Right, exactly. Obviously, like the volleyball, that's not been affected, luckily. But you're kind of picking your poison type of deal. Do you want to do this now? Do you want to pick it up later on? And we saw that with football in the past couple of years as well with this heat. Some programs have said, we're going to move it to Saturday. We haven't seen that happen yet. As of recording, that could change. That could really change. We don't know, but we're hopeful that everything's going to, and you look at the potential for storms as well on Friday night. We could see some Saturday games aside from here in Marion, but at the same time, we're hoping for a lot of good Friday night action this week. And you look at everything, it's just exciting to have finally happening.
No doubt. And we are recording this on Thursday morning, so some things are TBD or subject to change for sure. You mentioned Friday night with the potential for storms. What's interesting to me is clearly, things have changed because so many schools have turf now.
Yeah.
There's maybe a willingness to wait it out.
Right, exactly. And I've had some conversations with some people, and they've been very much adamant of, we might see this get moved on over to Saturday, and I guess I'm still of the mind of we'll wait it out. We'll get to Friday night, but some people are also like we'll wait it out to the next day when it looks a lot more clear. So, we'll see what happens. But yes, there's a lot more willingness, whether it's to the next day or just later in the night, to just wait things out, give it a couple hours and see where things go. It used to be, we'll move it to Monday sometimes because they're like, you know what, it's going to downpour. Let's try to let things dry out a little bit. Now it's much more in the next 12 hours sometime we'll get the game in.
Well, there was also that fear that if you had a grass field and you just tore it up, especially early in the season.
Week one? Thank you.
You're done all year.
Yeah.
Your field is shot.
Yeah, exactly. And now with turf, it's much more easy to, as you said, wait it out. It'll drain out. And you don't have to worry about your field being completely destroyed. Speaking from my personal experience, I have seen the field get completely destroyed before week 4, and then you're sitting there with a couple home games left, and you're like, this is what we have to run on? This is what we have to practice on? It's not fun. So a lot of these kids and these coaches are grateful that they have turf fields for multiple reasons.
And turf has really become across the board thing. Marion with Cahokia getting turf, Centralia getting turf.
Yeah.
Marion AD Ryan Gadisky had tweeted out this is the first time that Marion will have no games on grass during the regular season.
That's pretty amazing. To think even 5-10 years ago that would be something that any school anywhere really would expect. I'm still of the mind of let's have some grass fields around, but everybody, as we mentioned, it just is easier. It makes much more sense to have turf field. It's the way of the, I wouldn't even say the future, it's the way of the present. And that's what everybody wants to do. And if you got the money, that's what you're going towards. Not just those bigger schools. Anna Jonesboro just put one in. They're just one of a couple that we saw this offseason put one in.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, obviously, it's a high dollar item,
yes,
to be sure. But I remember when Carterville, when they were building the new school and the football stadium went in, and I talked to the superintendent at the time, Tim Blyer, and he told me a story. He's like, basically, at that point, and that was many moons ago, that they were spending $25,000 a year for upkeep of the grass field. And then he's like, we spend all this time taking care of it and getting it ready, and then we spend all the rest of our time telling everybody to stay off of it.
Right. Yeah.
And that the artificial turf, while expensive, it opened up so many other things for more than just the football team.
Right, exactly. You have kind of a permanent home for your soccer team generally, where it used to be you had to go out to one of the park districts and have some sort of field there. But at the same time, yeah, the price tag is pretty hefty when you see that. You're looking at in the millions. But then that's something that stays there for 15 years or so, where it gets paid off. It's there, and then when you have to kind of re-up on the asphalt, the rubber that is being used, it usually isn't as much because you've already got it there. It's just kind of redistributing, putting new stuff in. Whereas, yeah, if you're doing the upkeep, like you said, 25,000, maybe even more for a grounds crew, this just makes a little bit more sense. But at the time, yeah, I understand when people see that price tag, when they're looking at it at a school board meeting and you're a taxpayer and you're sitting there saying, I'm paying how much?
Right.
But at the same time, it comes back eventually. But I understand. You're waiting for the tree to grow, and it doesn't take
Right.
6 months. It takes 20 years for that oak to fully grow.
And, I mean, it goes for marching bands.
Yeah.
They talked about, can do PE in the spring, baseball or softball could practice if needed.
Yeah.
So there are obviously a lot of uses for it. Let's talk about week one.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have front row seat for, it's always a dandy week one.
It sure is.
Murphy at Carbondale.
Yeah, 106th meeting between the two teams. It's always an exciting one. Just a couple years ago, it was a triple overtime game. I think we got done at about 11:30 that night. It was quite the night. Without storms. Yes, it was quite the game. And that's usually what you get with Carbondale and Murfreesboro. Murfreesboro is slightly smaller, so Carbondale has the edge in, if you talk about school size a little bit. But overall, it's always a competitive game one way or another.
Right.
Carbondale leads the series by about 11 wins currently, but Murfreesboro's won the past 3. And I talked about the one that was triple overtime. Since then, it's not been nearly as close. But this year, Carbondale's looking. They've got a new quarterback. And aside from that, they're looking like they're pretty set to roll. So it's going to be interesting. While Murfreesboro is reloading in a lot of positions, but they've got their stars still. So it's going to be really interesting. I think it's going to be one of the more competitive ones that we've seen in recent years.
You hear a lot, you can throw out the records when so-and-so, and this truly is one of those cases, but it's just, it ratchets up that much higher when both teams are pretty good, and I think both these teams are going to be pretty good.
I agree completely, and the beauty behind what you just said there is you don't have to throw out the records. They're both 0-0 every time they see each other, aside from the maybe handful of games that they've met outside of week one. But yeah, it's gonna be a really good game. These teams, I know that their quarterback, Carbondale's quarterback, he's a sophomore. He did see a little bit of action last year. Brock Bowlby was hurt for a week or two, and he did see a little bit of action. So even though he's a sophomore, he's only seeing a little bit of time. He's gotten to taste that varsity action that a lot of guys. Let's take Murfreesboro's quarterback Gibson Faker. Last year when he's coming in, he saw garbage time his sophomore year. He was told, go out there, hand the ball off, take a knee, that's it. No. Woolley, the Carbondale quarterback, he's actually had to throw a couple touchdowns. And I believe in that game that he played, it was a win. I can't remember the exact statistics and the score, but I believe he led them to victory in a time of crisis. So he's got experience, even though he's young and overall inexperienced. He knows what he's doing out there.
Yeah, just a sophomore and just the luxury he has. An enormous and experienced offensive line.
Yeah.
And Mozzie Graham in the backfield with him. Those are two pluses for any quarterback, much less a young quarterback.
Yeah. Mozzie Graham is just he's a beast, is what he is. He's fantastic, and their offensive line is very good. Their defensive line is very good as well. Knowing Murfreesboro, though, what I've seen, they've got a pretty big line as well, which is not exactly characteristic for them. They're usually a little bit smaller, but this year going down the roster, you see a lot of 245, 250, 260 even. And so while their height may not match up necessarily, they still have one of their heavier lines that they're used to. And we're going to see how well, because they want to be agile in Murfreesboro. So we're going to see how well that strength, that size is going to counteract with their agility. But overall, yeah, this game is going to come down to the trenches. Football coaches always say that. This is one of those ones that it's going to come down to that because Carbondale's defensive and offensive lines are so good, and Murfreesboro has so many bigger guys than they're used to. This is going to come down to who's got the more push from their line.
And Carbondale anchored by the coach's son, Owen Lee,
Yes.
who is just a mammoth human being.
He
and
is.
he's already got an offer from Murray State, also got an offer from Southern.
Yeah.
And again, with both situations, Murphy and Carbondale, the line play just has to give a crease because not only is Mozzie Graham good on that side, Tyjair Kellum's fantastic and just a touchdown waiting to happen for the Red Devils.
Yeah, I imagine that the first play is going to be a handoff to him for Murfreesboro, and he's going to be ready to go, chomping at the bit, because he broke his arm in the second playoff game of the year, and he's been ready to go since, having to watch both the Harrisburg game in the quarterfinals and the Rochester game in the semifinals.
And, when you have a situation where you have a kid coming back, I was over there for the midnight practice, and that young man dominated every drill, defense and offense. It wasn't just, that guy is so good with the ball. Defensively, when they were doing different drills, he was fantastic there as well. And I don't know how much time he'll see on defense.
Right, I think that they're going to try to shift one way or another, and we'll see what happens, honestly. But it'll be interesting. Last year, he got to be just running back, but now he's back to safety.
Of course, Black Diamond being in a closed conference, they start right in with conference play. And the defending champs, Cesar-Valere Waltonville, the Red Devils, had an amazing season, tied a school record for wins, ended up 11-1. Graduated a lot of dudes.
They did.
But they've got a lot of guys coming back on the line, and they are going to be big and physical up front.
Yeah, John Shadowins, I remember reading or hearing that, the main guys from last year are gone. But a lot of the guys that are now coming in, stepping in this year, they got valuable experience last year. They stepped in second halves when the game was already well in hand at halftime, really. And they were able to get that experience for half of a game. And that's much better than stepping in with about 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. If you're playing varsity football where the other team thinks, you know what, they make some mistakes, we get a turnover, they're keeping their ones out there while the twos are coming out for Cesar-Valere. And Cesar-Valere's twos are all of a sudden getting that experience against the ones. Now all of a sudden, the Red Devils have ones and 1Bs. And now those 1Bs are stepping into the 1A role, and they're going to find out real quick, how good are we really by playing a full 40 minutes?
And again, the luxury of having a returning line. The Red Devils open at home against Hamilton County. The Foxes were a team that were right there going into Week 9, and then they would have taken the forfeit if they would have taken the forfeit with Vienna Goreville.
Right.
But look, all due respect for playing the game. They played West Frankfort, and they ended up losing in overtime, a very tough way. But that also shows that, hey, we want to play.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that.
Without a doubt, the Foxes are one of those teams that have been a little bit in flux in recent years, but they're building right there. And just don't be surprised if that green fox shows up at the end of the season. You're like, whoa, where'd they come from? They're always kind of in the mix there in that Black Diamond, and make sure that they're not forgotten about. If they're sitting there at 3-5 headed into Week 9, they're probably going up against somebody that's looking for a playoff position, or they're looking to get good seeding in the playoffs. And so even at that point, they're like, we're going to show up, we're going to ruin your day, and we're going to show that next year we're going to be better. So if they're not in the playoff mix, they're always making sure that they're doing something, affecting people, and they usually are successful at that.
You have CZR at Johnston City, and Johnston City, that game was supposed to be at CZR, had some the renovations on the track not quite done yet, so they moved that game to Johnston City. And, the Indians certainly have just become a perennial contender, if not the team to beat. Last year, Cesar-Valere Waltonville got them, but they're going to be in that top three in the mix.
Todd Thomas has really built that program up really good. He came back how many years now? 6 or 7 at this point. And he said, this is my hometown. This is what I want to do. And I want to make this program something special. And it has become something special. It is one of those programs that, every year they're going to be good. Past couple of years, it's been not if they're going to be good, it's how good are they going to be? How deep are they going to go in the playoffs? It's become kind of an expectation that they will make the playoffs. And it's just, can you get past the first round, the second round? Can you get to the quarterfinals, the semifinals? Johnston City is a very good club. Expect them to be one of the favorites in Black Diamond, without a doubt. But CZR, they're trying to build up something there. Not saying that they're going to have an easy time by any means going to Johnson City. That is a tough place to play. But they're looking to prove something after last year. Tommy Spillane having his second year now there with them, getting everything put in. He might feel like, hey, you know what? Why not us? Why not start it out 1-0? It's not an easy thing to do at Johnson City, but if you can start it there, the sky's the limit then in the Black Diamond.
Oh, no question, no question. Other Diamond openers include Flora at Carmi-White County. The Bulldogs, a playoff team a year ago, and they had some injuries at running back, and things kind of derailed at the end of the season. But still, Kurt Simon, I think, is one of the guys. Carmi's kind of over here in the middle for. In Southern Illinois, they're kind of an outlier just in location only, but Kurt Simon is one of the top coaches, period.
He's looking for, heading to this game, win number 160, which is only second to Mike Rood right now, who's splitting wins with John Shadowins at Cesar-Villiers. So Kurt Simon, one of the premier coaches in the area, he knows what he's doing. And the thing is, I'm from Central Illinois. Was talking with my dad a few weeks ago about the area. I mentioned Kurt Simon. He was like, oh, yeah. So he's well known. He's well known, not just in Southern Illinois, all across the state.
And the one thing that I like about Coach Simon's teams through the years, back in the day when they had a guy that could sling it, they went 5 wide. But when they graduated, they didn't have that. And then it's like, okay, we're going to go back to the wing tee.
Right, which is how I think at this level. Obviously, some coaches have the right to say, you know what, we're going to run this and that's that. But at this level specifically, you don't get to pick who's coming to you. Try to build around it. And so I love when coaches say, you know what, we have a really good throwing option. I'm a run first guy, but today, this year, we're throwing the ball like heck.
And the other Black Diamond opener, El Dorado at Edwards County. A couple teams trying to get off to good starts for their seasons.
Yeah, without a doubt. Both are needing to win pretty badly to start off the season, and so it'll be interesting to see just what comes out of that one.
For the second year in a row, Fairfield does not have a Week 1 opponent because Vienna Goreville is not playing a varsity schedule. Last year, the Mules added Freeburg. They could not find a travel partner, or could not find a partner anyway. It didn't matter where they were going to play. They just it didn't match up, and so Justin Townsend's crew starts with a bye.
Yeah, exactly, and we'll see how that works out for them. It could potentially work very well, could not go well. Sometimes you just want to jump right on in, but I think for them it might actually work out. They're a little bit younger this year. That learning experience, getting that extra week, and to prepare for your Week 2 opponent, it can sometimes be invaluable.
And this is where the new scrimmage really came into play. That they scrimmaged against Olney, and talking to Coach Townsend, he didn't feel like that there was as much of a gosh, we got to play Week 1. You have tape from the 48 plays against Richland County, so they have some things to work on or work with.
Right, exactly. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe they have a sophomore quarterback that started all last year.
Yes, Jalen Mainers. He's
one of the big returning quarterbacks in the area.
He threw for I believe 1,300 yards and roughly, I think 17 touchdowns, and that's pretty good for a freshman all conference quarterback.
Yeah.
So certainly a lot. And they have some experienced line play to go as well. When you look at the non-conference games, the one that stands out to me is Benton at Carterville. The Rangers, playoff team a year ago. This year they've got, I think, 20 starters back. It's a crazy number that they have back. And this is a team that was down a touchdown at Mount Carmel with the ball in the fourth quarter. And Mount Carmel ends up going on to the state finals. And this is a team that has some pretty high expectations.
Without a doubt, they always seem to,
It's gotten to that point.
And no matter what sport you're talking about almost. But Tevin Kazukis is just, Glover, when he was there, it was like, oh, every other team was like, finally. And then in steps Kazukis, and it's like, again? Really? And he's, Justin Groves, when I remember talking to him, and he said, I got Tiffin coming up, he was saying he might be better, honestly. And he has kind of been on that cusp of, is he better than Glover? Well, at this point, it doesn't matter because the Rangers are just fantastic. And so he'll be leading the charge, but he's got two of his top receivers coming back as well, and Grant Owens and Jester Zepeda, who has gotten a little bit of looks from SIU as well. You look at his stats from last year, like, okay, he's all right, but he's got the tools to be that kind of Division I type of wide receiver. Look for him to have a good year this year.
And Zepeda also a very good kicker, gives the Rangers a weapon in the special teams. Carterville, I saw them in the scrimmage against Marion and was very impressed. The Lions, Nick Bishing steps in at quarterback. Right. He'd been a quarterback coming up through the ranks. Last year played wideout to get on the field.
Right.
And so now he goes back to quarterback. And we talked after the game, and I asked him, how did that help? Because now he can see it from the receiver's eyes. And so now he goes back to quarterback. I think that's a big thing.
It is, without a doubt, because now you understand what your receivers are going through. You kind of understand the way that they're thinking when they're running their routes a little bit. Can look across and see, okay, who are the DBs that they're going against? He can go to the sideline after an interception or a touchdown and say, hey, this is what I saw. This is what I would have done. Maybe that can help you. Now, him and Braden Wakey were the top receivers for Carterville. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. But also Carterville had that kind of 5-wide set all season. So it's not that they're without weapons. It's that their two top weapons last year are no longer with the team in terms of passing. So we'll see how that works. As Bishing is throwing, Wakey is no longer with the team. But you've got Poole, you've got Crane. It's a fantastic group right there that we will see just how well they all do, because they were among 4 or 5 of them were all among the leaders of passing in Southern Illinois when you were looking at like the top 20 in terms of who was leading in receptions.
And I will say this, a young man's name to keep an ear out for, Chance Myers at running back. That dude runs hard every play.
Without a doubt. I think I saw him maybe once last year because that was another position Carterville was dealing with last year. They kept running through the running back position, cycling, trying to find somebody. Sometimes there was an injury. And Chance Myers was somebody that Dave McKenzie told me, and I think I saw maybe a run play or two from as well, that it was like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely one to watch for sure. Looking at some other non-conference openers, Carlisle's at Nashville. The Hornets just, every year, Stephen Kazuzik, and we talked about Kurt Simon. I think very highly of Coach Kazuzik and his staff. I just think that they do some really good things, especially offensively. And each year they've kind of had a different group, and they open at home against Carlisle.
Yeah, they're always an interesting group. They're a reload type of program. They're always ready the next year. And we talked about Todd Thomas, how he kind of has built that program up in Johnson City. Same thing with Stephen Kazuka. It's just a fantastic job that he's done. And he's got some of the top receivers in the area without a doubt over there. Blazier is one of them. Colbaum's another one of them. So their quarterback's going to be pretty happy with what he's got to throw to.
No doubt. Another team, Matty V, that had a great season a year ago, the DuQuoin Indians, in Logan Spain's first as the Tribe's head coach. They go a perfect regular season bout in the second round of the playoffs. A great start. They've got some tools to work with coming back, but they lost some dudes. Camden Waller, quarterback, PJ Winters, who's over at Southern. So some big holes to fill.
Yeah, without a doubt, but they're going to find a way. They had some of the top rushers in the area last year in both Tristan Webb and then Luke Bauman also. Mm-hmm. You took out one of them, and the other one just came rumbling right on through one way or another. So they'll be an interesting team to follow this year without a doubt as Logan Spain prepares for year 2 at DuQuoin. And I mean, if you can follow anything up with that, go to the playoffs again. Maybe not perfect, but if you can go back to the playoffs, I think those Indians are going to be pretty interesting to watch. And then on the other side of this matchup, Chester is a pretty interesting team to me as well. The past couple of years, they've been building and building. Bill Belton's been doing a good job, and he's got a good quarterback in Alja Sim. So we'll see how that works out. I don't know how well they match up with DuQuoin, but in terms of the Cahokia, I think Chester's ready to blow.
All right. We have some crossover games in the River to River. Harrisburg, who had a great season, bowed out in the quarterfinals in that amazing game against Murfreesboro. And I know the Bulldogs don't really want to talk about the way that one ended. But they open up on the road. You mentioned AJ's got new turf. They've got a new head coach as well.
They do. Jamie Yates is going to be have tall shoes to fill, or big shoes to fill, I should say. But at the same time, he's a familiar face for that team, for that program. He's been kind of Brett Dietering's right-hand man for several years, so we'll see how well that works out. AJ's been struggling the past couple of years. They're trying to build, and so for AJ, who's a kind of, I think it's one of those teams that in Southern Illinois, it's when they're good, everything else seems just a little bit better. So for AJ fans and for AJ and all of Southern Illinois, hopefully they start to kind of find the right direction once again. But yeah, it's an uphill climb without a doubt. And to start with Harrisburg, who is probably still angry over how things ended for them last year, it's not going to be easy. But as I said earlier with another one of the matchups we talked about, what better way to start for 1-0? That's a team that if you beat them, sky's the limit.
Yeah, that would be a big time get, and again on the new turf at AJ, and so an odd trip to AJ to see turf and no Brett Dieterink for the first time in nearly 3 decades. Another crossover game, Massac County's at West Frankfort, and Frankfort's a club that they showed some signs last year, and they've got a lot of guys back, and Massac County's another team that's got to make another transition.
Yeah, West Frankfort is one that I'm going to be following a lot this year, I think. Travion Johnson is just he's the guy that when you look at the Redbirds, you're like, man, if he can figure it out, I think they're all going to figure it out. And he kind of did figure it out last year. So it's going to be fun to watch them. I think they're going to be a good club. Can they get back to the playoffs is the question for them this year as they enter with a pretty seasoned group.
All right, other games involving river-to-river teams. Pinckneyville is at Redbud. The Panthers trying to get off a good start. Redbud, a playoff team a year ago, and so going on the road, that'll be a tough start. But the Panthers trying to get some positive momentum in Ryan Lott's, as he tries to build that program back. Yeah,
and I think a lot of people expected the Panthers last year to maybe take the next step, and they didn't really. That happens sometimes. But going against Redbud, that's a good season opening type of game right there. I'll be interested to see just how they use the momentum one way or another. Do they start with a loss? Do they start with a win? We'll find out. But when you get down to it, Ryan Lott definitely needing to start good on this season with the Panthers.
We talked about Carbondale, some other South 7 openers. The Mount Vernon Rams are at home against Waterloo. Dan Ming's return has been just what the doctor ordered for the Orange and Black, and he brought back instant credibility, and they go to the playoffs each of his first 2 years. Now, they're pretty young, but they have talent, and this is going to be a team that I think by the end of the season you're going to be seeing play some really good football.
Yeah, well, the one thing I was going to say is the fact that, look at what Dan Mings did in year one of his return. You went from 0-9, I believe, was what they were the year before. 1-8, something like that.
4-33. I mean, the numbers were staggering when you went back.
And you just look at what he did in year one. Got a bunch of kids out that weren't really wanting to be out there originally, and then they started believing. Doesn't matter if he's got a team full of freshmen. He could get some wins. Not saying a team full of freshmen would go to the playoffs in the varsity format, but he'd probably find a way to get 4 wins, if nothing else.
And obviously, Devontae Nesbitt, Jr. was phenomenal last year, set all kinds of records. And so you talk about big shoes to fill. And that's a guy whose production night in, night out. The game that I shot of those guys at Marion when both quarterbacks had been hurt, and he played Wildcat, and he had 40-plus touches, and that was not including 3 or 4 that were called back for penalties. So, it was just an unbelievable. Kid was a warrior, and now he is a warrior for Red
Yes,
Lake.
he is.
It's nice how that worked out. But that kind of guy and that kind of leader is certainly not easy to replace.
No, not one bit. But you're going to have to if you want to replicate what you did last year, you're going to have to. And that's what every football coach has to go through every single year. You have guys that graduate, and then you say, we got to find somebody that can be at least as good as him, if not better. And so count on Dan Mings to find something. There's a lot of athletes at Mount Vernon. I trust that he'll find somebody.
Also in the South 7, Centralia will play its first football game on the new turf at home in the annual rivalry game against Salem. we talk about Murphy and Carbondale.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Salem Centralia is open week 1 for as long as I can remember, and that is always a big-time scrum, and it will be a great atmosphere at Evers Field with the new turf.
Yeah, without a doubt. They've got one of the top, I should say the Orphans have one of the top returning receivers in Xavier Cook. It's just it's going to be an interesting one, without a doubt. I don't know much about the teams, I'll admit, but at the same time, that's always, when you get rivalry games week 1, all bets are off. It's always fun.
And the other South 7 game is actually on Saturday, and it involves two of our River Radio teams, and it is Heron at Marion. Again, you talk about rivalry games, and this is one that it has come back in previous years. I mean, used to be big time thing. I mean, and you still talk to people in their 40s and older, and they don't like if you're Marion, you don't like Heron. If you're Heron, it's a little different now on the field because the kids all know each other.
Right.
They all kind of either hang out or they play travel ball, whatever, together. It's still a huge rivalry in the stands, if nothing else. But here you have Heron, a team in transition again. Marion in its second year under head coach Jason Dunning, who took over for Kerry Martin, had a great start last year, and then the season kind of fell apart with injuries and all that. And so now you have two teams, again, very hungry to get off to a good start.
Without a doubt, and I think Marion will find a way through the strife that they had at the end of last season. Callahan Roper's a great quarterback coming back for them. But yeah, Heron, it's going to be interesting to see how they look under Coach Shockley, and at the same time, how can Marion kind of bounce back from last year? It's a big rivalry game, like you mentioned, so we'll see. It's always fun Saturday night for a rivalry game as well. And
the unique thing is there aren't very many games Saturday,
right?
Which is a little surprising. It's the only game in the immediate area.
Right. As of right now.
Well, again, the caveat with that being, and again, you can hear the Heron broadcast or the Marion broadcast, depending on which one you prefer, on one of our radio stations.
They both do a fantastic job, and no matter what, you're getting a Murphy on it.
Right. you either get Gavin or you get the
Mike.
Original Murph.
Yeah.
So, so great stuff there. Again, Friday night is the season opener. There is actually a game. A Cahokia team plays tonight. Freeburg opens, and tonight again we're recording on Thursday.
Yeah.
Freeburg opens at DeSoto, Missouri. Teams are allowed to start on Thursday,
Correct.
like college, but they're the only one in the region. And there's a ton of other games for teams that I will include in the scoreboards that are maybe a little bit outside of our coverage area. But when you get into the Cahokia Conference, they have those three. We've traditionally covered Chester and Sparta.
Sure. Yeah.
But now that group includes Redbud, and that includes Carlisle, and that includes Breeze Central and Freeburg. And so you see some teams. And ultimately, the better teams, you may see them down the line in the playoffs.
You just might. Specifically, 2A, 3A are the ones that we're looking at right now. Without a doubt, you could see them. The one thing I'll say about the Thursday ones is I think IHSA does that more so for like the Chicago area teams. That's not the true start to high school football. Friday night.
Yes.
That's Friday night
It's
lights.
a Friday.
It's not called Thursday night lights. Okay,
Right.
So we're looking forward to it though, and good luck to Freeburg tonight. Hopefully they come back with a win. Illinois teams for the win.
Always. And again, we'll have all your scores on riverradiosportscentral.com. And, of course, join us on social media on the River Radio Sports Central Facebook page. We'll be doing Friday Night Live, powered by Charlie's Air Conditioning and Heating. It'll be somewhere around 10 o'clock. Depends on the game I covered last year. It was crazy because every game I covered was a 2.5+ hour epic, and so I wasn't getting back here till late. And so, and weather could, hopefully doesn't, but it could play a factor.
Yeah, you might be doing it at 2 a.m.
Oh, yeah, me and about 4 of my friends in there. But again, check us out. If you haven't done so, give us a like on Facebook. Facebook and on Twitter/X, whichever you prefer, River Radio Sports Central. All the game updates that we have will be sent out through there. And again, Friday Night Live. And then look, as next week, looking ahead, we'll have our first Player of the Week voting. And that's brought to us by the Orthopedic Center of Southern Illinois in Mount Vernon. So look forward to that. Look forward to a great first week. And Maddie, have a good call.
Yeah, thanks. We're all been looking forward to it. For several weeks. I've had about all my papers ready, one way or another. I've been itching to go since, we did the Sika All-Star game in June, and after that, I was like, okay, let's go. Let's suit it up. So I've been waiting for close to 3 months now, and I am ready. Let's do this.